We want to show you guys how to properly install a Sportster motor in a Sportster frame. This can work if you've even hardtailed your frame. An easy way to put your motor in. A lot of people do it. I have a lot of people calling on questions, and some people are going about it the wrong way, and don't want you guys to break the ears off the back of your motor. So we'll just show you really quick, in probably 5 minutes, an easy way to quickly and easily mount your Sportster motor. First, you have to have a buddy carry your motor over to your bike. Second, said buddy set the motor in the frame. Obviously this is raw, so when you guys do it, you're probably gonna have a nice painted motorcycle, so some other precautions are gonna be in place for you, maybe some carpet, cargo blankets. All right, that's good, Dave. Pull it out a little bit. I want to show everybody the dowels back in the back. So on the Evo 5-speed motors and 4-speed motors, you're gonna have these dowels here. You want to slide those into the motor mount first. There you go. When you get that in, one of the biggest mistakes that I hear from people is they've put this motor in, they've tightened these up tight, and they can't get the front motor mounts to line up. That's not how all this works. That's why if you look at a stock motor mount, see how big all these holes are? The holes in your stock frame are also very big. Therefore, that allows for slop to move all this around to get it lined up to put it in. So the way I like to do it is I start with the bottom bolts here. Sometimes you may need to lift up on the front of the motor to get these started because it'll be at an angle. And the tolerances on our motor mount holes are very tight. So if you have to go in and like drill them up one size, you're not gonna hurt anything at all. But sometimes you may need to get a pry bar, lift up on the front of the motor just a little bit to get that dowel with the threads in it straight with your bolt to get the threads started, or you'll strip that out. So you get these started, and then just kind of let it lay there. Then you'll go in on the top. Once again, you may have to move this around a little bit. Kind of get them lined up. Let me get a little hammer. Here's one. Could take just a little tapping. And like I said, now is not the time to tighten all this up. If you tighten all this up now with a fully built motor, you risk breaking the case off here, one of these ears off the case. I've seen it a million times. So leave all of this loose to where your motor, you can still go up and down, back and forth. Then what I like to do, these are gonna be mid-control mounts, not the forward control mounts, but the forward control mounts are practically the same exact mounts as these. It's good, Dave. So, on the front mounts on these, this mount is going to mount on the outside, and this mount is going to mount on the inside of the frame brackets here. Sometimes you got to jimmy them around here to get them in there. There we go. Oh, I forgot to show you guys. On this motor mount, this one's threaded. If you've done any powder coating or painting, it's best off to make sure you've tapped that and get all the powder coat out of there, because this one's usually pretty tricky to get the bolt started into. So I like to start with that one first. Put that motor mount up there. See how this one will go on the inside of the frame motor mounts on ours. Now, if you're using somebody else's frame, I don't know how they've configured theirs. That might mount up a little bit different, but we try to keep all of our stuff the way you mount it and build it exactly the way Harley engineered it to begin with. So what I like to do is take that bolt first and run that one through the motor, because if you leave these loose, get this out of the way. If you leave these loose, it lets you finagle and straighten up this top motor mount up here with that nut to get this bolt started first. If you put everything else in here first, sometimes it's a real bear to get this bolt started into that fine thread nut over there. So I like to start with this first. Now you've got everything hanging here off the motor. This bottom bolt, slide it through. You'll have a nut that goes over here. I don't have that right now to put on there, but you get the picture. So, with that being said, if you come over here, nothing lines up. None of these holes line up. You can't get anything in. And I guarantee if you tighten these back here as tight as you can, it's gonna lift this, but it's still not gonna be correct. And then therefore, like I said, you're risking breaking off the ears on the back of your transmission. So what you need to do is get in here again with a pry bar. If you've painted your bike and it's all cleaned up, you know, put some cargo blankets or carpet on it. Like, it doesn't take much pressure. You can see right there how I'm lifting the motor up with just a little bit of pressure on this pry bar. You get everything where it needs to be. Now everything lines up. And just so you guys know, this isn't the absolute correct hardware. I know I don't have correct lock washers or washers. This is more on just showing you how to line these motor mounts up and get your motor in, as opposed to explaining correct hardware. You're gonna wanna use the correct washers. I like to use nylock nuts, you know, with nice, big, fat, thick, flat washers. Then once again, you're gonna come over here, do the same thing. Just a little bit of finagling, it's not much. But see, when you leave the back of that motor loose, everything moves around correctly. You just line all this stuff up. Then if you come here and look on the back, see how the rear motor mounts are pretty much tight. There's just a little bit of light between them, but what you're gonna do now is tighten all this up. This is all gonna be exactly straight, the way it needs to be. If I had the correct, what is that? That's a 1/2 inch. All right. Start with the top or the bottom, it doesn't really matter. Well, I would say it does matter a little bit. I like to start with the top, because if you start with the bottom, the top could be out a little bit more. So you could leave, if you tighten up down here, you could risk breaking the bottom ones off. So start with the top. Now you tighten the back up. Now you just simply go up here. Tighten all these up. You're good to go. Now I have seen on some of the thicker motor mounts for the forward controls, when you put those on, if there's a little gap up here at the front of the motor, it may throw your peg off a little bit out here. So sometimes up here on these, depending on what frame you're using, how they have their offset, you may want to make a little spacer and put on this side so that your peg sets out straight. There's nothing wrong with a spacer. You put them in there, you use spacers all the time, spacing up motors, but that right there is a really quick and easy way to put your Sportster motor in, the correct way to do it without risking breaking anything. And once again, if you tighten all this stuff up back here, nothing is going to line up. Everything here's got to move a little bit. That's the way it was designed to be used. Straight from Harley, you look at any of the motor mounts, everything's elongated and big. That way you can move it around and get it bolted up. So hopefully that helps you guys out up there. One more thing, I just want to throw this out to you guys. There is the method also, say you got everything all dolled up and it's really nice, polished motor, you don't want to touch anything putting it together. A lot of times what you can do is lay this motor on its side on a nice cargo blanket and then have a buddy come in, grab the front and you can grab the back and slowly lay the frame around the motor and push it up on there and throw a couple bolts in and then set it up if you're having issues getting it in. Sometimes if it's not razor lowered, it's a little tighter to get in here, so you may not want to beat and bang it off everything. That's another method of getting it in, but still when you go to bolt everything up, the motor mounts, the way I just showed you is the way to do it.